Sometimes sorcerers use black cats in black magic, and in ancient mythology they have always been a symbol of polytheism and ruin. Since I am a believer in the hidden forces that work behind the curtain and move the events of the world, if I happened to encounter a black cat on my way, I would remain wary of it throughout the day. Despite all this, one day I visited my sister's house, who has a black cat named Carlita. While I was there, I noticed that the cat was constantly staring at me, and I also felt a strange coldness coming over me in its presence. You might not believe that I started reducing my visits to my sister's house in order to avoid her cat's gaze. Her black color and blue eyes were what frightened me most about her appearance. I mentioned this to my sister once, and she was impressed by my words. She told me her eyes are yellow. Then her daughter asked her what color her cat's eyes were. The little girl answered innocently, "Yellow." Then I realized that I was the only person who could see the color of her eyes for what they really were. I felt extremely panicked for several minutes. Then I got control of my nerves and pretended to be indifferent to this argument. When I arrived at my home, I was exhausted from the bout of conflicting thoughts that had passed through my mind. I was living with my brother in the house of my deceased father and mother, and my brother would come home 2 days a week because of his work, so I would spend the rest of the week alone, and when I lay down on my bed wanting to sleep, and the lights were completely off, I noticed something strange. He was like a black shadow standing behind the window, and he was staring at me with a sparkle in his eyes. After a few minutes, I tried to ignore this matter and turned to the opposite side so I could no longer see the window. After about an hour, I felt as if someone was pulling the cover from me, so I opened my eyes and looked to see who this annoying person was, who wanted to wake me up from sleep, and here was the shock. I saw a black cat that looked like the cat in my sister's house, and it was standing at my feet and staring at me, and suddenly it pounced on my face, so I screamed, saying, "Get away from me, get away from me!" Suddenly, my brother entered and turned on the lights and woke me up from sleep. I opened my eyes and was trembling with fear, and my brother told me to calm down. It was a dream. So I told him while I was shaking and crying that it was not a dream. I felt it, and it was stuck to my face. He said to me, "Who is this?" I told him, "The black cat was standing here." He told me to rest assured, because there is no one here, and from that night, the change in my life began. What are these changes? We will know later. During one of the visits to my sister's house, the cat sat in front of me, staring at me continuously, and I realized at that moment that she was staring at something behind my back. When I returned home, I sat alone in front of the bedroom mirror, turned off the lights except for the glimmer of light sneaking in from the street lamp, and began to stare into the dim darkness with my face in the mirror. Without batting my eyelids, after several minutes of concentration, I discovered behind me a face very similar to my own. It was white and blue in color. I felt his breath tickling my neck at that moment, and then I felt afraid because I did not expect to find him behind me. When I went to bed to sleep, I felt that this shadow was sharing the bed with me, and I felt a slight coolness covering the entire room, and on my way to work I felt it walking beside me. At first I tried to get used to it, but after a while I began to feel that it shared my presence. "Friend, I'm losing weight." My privacy, he follows me everywhere. It almost drives me crazy. I started asking myself, how long can I bear this harassment? After 2 weeks, I was on the verge of a nervous breakdown, so I decided that I had to get rid of it. He is aware of all my actions. He accompanies me all the time, but until this moment, he has not been able to enter my body to know my thoughts. Then I spent 2 days putting the plan in my mind to get rid of him. When I entered the kitchen, I took out a green watermelon and a large knife to cut it, and as I began to cut its green outer peel, I suddenly pushed the knife with my hand behind me, over my shoulder, to the head of the ghost accompanying me, and I felt terrible pain when the knife stuck in my back. Blood began to flow profusely, and I do not know how I could control myself. So I quickly went to the neighbor's house and knocked on the door opposite my apartment. They took me to the hospital, and I underwent an operation in which the wound was stitched up. Then it was the turn of the criminal police to investigate the incident. While taking my statement, the first assistant asked me, "How did the disaster happen?" So I told him. While I was standing in the kitchen, I turned around and saw a short, dark man, whom I had never seen before in my life, stabbing me with a knife from behind me. I screamed in pain, so the man ran away, and I ran to the neighbor's house. At this moment, signs of astonishment appeared on the policeman's face, as if he did not believe a single word of what I was saying. But in the end, he concluded the report with the phrase, "A case against an unknown person." But the matter will not end this simply, because I tried to kill someone from the underworld, and after a few days I was able, and after improving, to leave the hospital and go home. When I arrived, I felt that he was waiting for me at the door of the apartment. When I entered the house, the weather was very cold and unusual, and I felt a tightness in my chest, as if someone was holding my breath. At nightfall on the first day and before I went to bed, I was accustomed to brushing my teeth before sleeping. So I was standing in front of the mirror in the bathroom, and I heard a voice whispering in my ear, but I did not understand. It was like a mumble, and the toothbrush fell from my hand, and I quickly got into bed, and after about an hour while trying to sleep, I was finally able to close my eyes. Now, at approximately 3 o'clock after midnight, I woke up to the sound of children laughing, as if 2 children were playing in my room, so I said to myself, "Stop this nonsense and go back to sleep." But the sound repeated again, and this time it was next to my ear. At this moment, my heart almost jumped out of its place due to the increased strength. The heartbeats, and after I was able to control myself, I finally closed my eyes and went back to sleep again. In the morning, I woke up and it was late, around 11 a.m., but this time I felt very tired, completely unusual, and during the day I did not notice anything except that I smelled a bad odor, and I did not know where it was. When darkness fell on the second night, I did not brush my teeth that night, so that no situation would happen to me, and I went to sleep immediately. Then I started thinking about the things that happened to me, and after deep thinking, I started to feel psychologically exhausted. Then I went into a deep sleep, and now around 2 in the morning this time, I woke up to the sound of crying, and the place was full of a bad smell, but it was much stronger. So I got up to see where did the crying sound come from? It was a shock. When I am inside my room, I hear the sound coming from outside the room, and when I leave the room, I hear the sound coming from inside it. At this moment, I remembered the sound that echoed in my ears when I was brushing my teeth. So I hurried to my room and closed the door. And within moments, I was inside my bed, and I was trembling with fear, and I could not sleep until sunrise. After several hours, I could not resist sleep because I did not sleep last night. And now, when I woke up, it was 11 p.m. I slept for more than 12 hours, so the stench was much stronger than before, and I was very hungry. So I went to the kitchen, and after I finished eating, I returned to my room to start thinking. And now it's almost 1 o'clock after midnight. So I was thinking about the strange things that happened to me. And suddenly I heard a sound as if someone was knocking on the window glass from outside. So I didn't dare look and tried to think of anything to ignore this matter. And I said, I must be delusional. But after a few minutes, I heard the same sound. So I said to myself, I will look to see if I am delusional or not. I saw the same cat that I saw in my dream earlier. She was standing outside the window and staring at me. At this point, I started to feel nervous, so I said I will go to the bathroom to wash my face and come back. I will definitely feel better. When I entered the bathroom, I looked in the mirror and was surprised by the same person I tried to kill. I stabbed myself, so I got out of the bathroom and went back to my room. Here I started hearing strange and incomprehensible sounds. I only understood a sentence from them that said, "Get out of here." Then I felt that all the things in the house were moving. Yes, it was this ghost that I tried to stab with a knife. He came to take revenge and brought his entire family with him. And here I realized that they did not leave me alone. And that night I remained sitting on my bed, frozen with fear, and I saw before my eyes strange things and phenomena happening. In my room, I was hearing non-existent sounds in my ears, and I remained in this state until the morning, and when the sun rose, I left the house and took only my clothes with me. The house remained empty of people and inhabited by the bodies of others from the underworld until this time. The end. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the bell button to receive all new updates.